Right, back to killer luggage. Picture the scene.
You're happily driving along 1 minute and then forced to suddenly brake the next. You may stop, but the laws of physics dictate that everything else might not. It doesn't take much for those innocent items strewn behind you to suddenly become an arsenal of deadly missiles.
In a crash, the effect would be even worse. The car industry and safety experts are concerned, but we were surprised to discover there's very little research and very few statistics on what many believe is a significant cause of injury and death.
So we've decided to do a few tests of our own. We've taken this typical family car, taken off the doors, cut out the roof to get a better view, and mounted it on this high-G sled to subject it to the sort of forces you'd experience in a head-on crash at just 30 miles an hour. That kind of speed is enough to generate an unbelievable 30G. So we've strengthened the floor to repeat the tests without buckling the body. And we have our usual £1,000,000 array of ruggedised high-speed cameras capturing the action. Our tests won't be rigorously scientific, but they will be all over in the blink of an eye. In order to simulate that deceleration, we use the sled to accelerate the car with the same force backwards.
Time for test one. We'll start with a typical scenario. Laptop and nice, solid, reassuring road atlases on the parcel shelf, smart attaché case from Auntie here, bit of shopping everywhere, and of course, Woof comes too.
As we said, tests like these are rare. So to help analyse the results, we've enlisted crash expert Andrew Beach. Stand by, everyone. It's absolute carnage. A road atlas smashes the windscreen and the front seats get pummeled. But what's the expert's view on our first crash?
Although the car is effectively stopped, all the contents are carrying on at 30 miles an hour and they'll continue to move until they hit something. Now on this occasion you can see everything on the parcel shelf has actually flown all the way forwards. Luckily for the occupants in the front, they haven't hit them. But you may not be quite so lucky. In the case of the briefcase, you can see it actually burst open and the shopping has gone well into pieces.
But I mean, one thing I've really noticed, as long as you keep everything on the seat itself or down behind those front seats, it does tend to stay in the rear compartment.
If you keep it low, particularly in the footwell behind the front seats, OK, there's quite a mess down there, but it actually hasn't moved forward at all, hasn't come into the front area where the passengers are and hasn't caused any damage.
But replay the stuff from the parcel shelf is just like a conveyor belt straight through the middle.
That's right. You've basically got a series of missiles that are heading forwards at 30 miles an hour.
So don't put anything heavy on your parcel shelf.
That would be my advice.
After all that, you might think you'd be better off putting heavy items in the boot. Well, join us in a moment for our next test, because it might make you think again. We're looking at killer luggage, and after our first test, you may think that the safest place to store heavy items is in the boot. You probably think it's as safe as a vault.
Well, we decided to find out with a typical boot full of DIY paraphernalia. One 30-mile-an-hour crash coming right up.
3, 2, 1...
The toolbox bursts open, hurtling its contents in all directions. Over to our expert.
In the early part of the test, the rear seats are actually opening just under their own inertia, but they only reach a certain level. Then just a few milliseconds later, the toolbox arrives like a battering ram. If you look at the rear seats, they've now been forced open such that the back of the seat is really touching the side of the door.
And that toolbox weighs about 15 kilos in reality. What does it effectively weigh there?
Well, this, as we've said, is a 30-mile-an-hour crash, generating roughly 30 Gs. So that's got an effective mass of 450 kilograms, nearly half a tonne.
So a child in the back will be hit by a half-ton toolbox.
Well, effectively, yes. Anybody sitting in the back seat of that car would be taking that force through the seat belts, and they'd be suffering that through their chest.
Now, our car was quite old, but newer cars have to pass a test with two 18-kilo blocks in the boot, so they should withhold stampeding luggage more effectively. Cars with a central three-point belt also have seats made of sturdier stuff. In fact, when there are no passengers in the back, it's a good idea to fasten the rear belts, as they strengthen the seat enormously, and make sure heavy items are placed side-on, in a corner and close to the seat to minimise the battering ram effect. If you've got a luggage net, use it. Even a flimsy one will help absorb some energy.
Well, we've got one test to go, the really bulky items. Ever felt threatened by your kitchen sink? No? Well, think again.
You've been to the flat pack furniture store for some choice bits of MDF and chipboard, in fact everything and the kitchen sink. But it's not just the confusing instructions that could ruin your weekend. Watch what happens when you crash at only 30 miles an hour. The folded rear seats act like a launch pad, firing the flat packs straight at your head. The forces involved are enough to bend the sink. Even at a relatively low 30 miles an hour, blunt objects become guillotines.
Well, in our simulated accident, the DIY shopping has destroyed the interior of this car. And I wouldn't fancy to be the driver the way that MDF has sliced into the back of the seat. The sink right the way through between the two front seats. Next time I'm asked to fit a new kitchen, I'll get it delivered.
So there you have it. Who'd have thought a soft toy, some spanners and a sink could be such lethal travelling companions? And don't worry, no animals were harmed in the making of this programme.